Hello BookTube. It is time for another reading wrap-up. I mean, that's why we're here, isn't it? It's all about those books. So, before I get started with my reading wrap-up, first thing I should say is I somehow or another have managed to start Tome Topple. I started it in a few days late, I think, but hey, I don't know when it ends. I should probably find that out. But it's created by Thoughts on Tomes, and there are challenges involved about reading an adult book, no problems there. Books over 500 pages, well, that's the plan. Well, they all have to be books over 500 pages, and then there's other things like graphic novels and whatnot, which is why I'm not really worrying about the challenges too much. I basically just want to knock off some big books. And so I started with that. I will link all of that down below if you feel like joining in. I don't know how much time is left. I should have probably checked that out first. But as I fell into this, I suppose I can fall out just as accidentally. Before I start though with going through the books that I've read, the other thing I need to do is give you a slight update. Earlier this year I read Tannie Maria and the Satanic Mechanic by Sally Andrew, and it wasn't my favourite book of the year. I was a little disappointed. I preferred the first book in the series, but at the back of that book they have recipes. I strongly recommend the Vanderham recipe. Oh my, is it nice. That's the only reason why I'm not shivering away here. Well, that and my nice big crocheted Jedi robes. It started off as a wearable blanket and just expanded into something else. Anyway, books. So the first one I'm going to show you is not a tome. This one I was reading still during the school term, so it's going back a bit. My mom and I read this one together, and this is non-fiction. It is Bouch, Through My Eyes. Now, Mark Boucher was South Africa's wicketkeeper. The last time I looked at cricket stats, he was the best wicketkeeper in the world as far as statistics went. I don't know if that's changed since then, but one way or another he was a significant force on the field. Did I mention that this is cricket? I don't know if most of you know about cricket, but anyway, it's cricket. And the wicketkeeper is the guy that stands behind the batsman to catch the ball. If the batsman's nicked the ball, he's there to catch him out or to try and stump him if he's out the crease, etc. And Mark Boucher's career actually ended horrifically. He was going to retire after that match, not the game, but the match against England. And it was still a warm-up game. And he lost his eye. Somebody actually wiped his iris off his cheek. It's a horrific way for a sportsman to leave. I'm going to put this down. I mean, you can see he's kind of cute, so, you know, we'll put it down now. This book starts covering the accident and the immediate effects and what went through his head. And that part was very interesting. I suppose we are human and have that gory craving for things like this. But it was rather interesting to read from his perspective, to see what happened on the field and off the field immediately after. It was very interesting and touching actually to read about the companionship and the camaraderie with the other players and how they responded to it as well. I mean, one of the greatest batsmen in the world was prepared to leave England and go home with him. You know, you don't get friendship like that. I mean, most people would give their eye teeth to go and play for their country. And yeah, the story then, well, the book then goes to the beginning of his life, and you follow Boucher as he went from a schoolboy who had dedication like I don't know who. In primary school, he was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go and practice sport. I mean, how crazy must you be going to exercise at 4 o'clock in the bloody morning when bed is calling and much warmer. But anyway, and it talks about him playing provincial cricket and then finally getting into the national side. It's not just about that side of cricket though. He covers a lot of other things too. Some of the sensitive issues, such as the scandal that happened with Hansie Cronje. Now, Hansie Cronje was South Africa's cricket captain at one point in time, and he was involved or found guilty of being involved in match fixing. So, was getting South Africa to lose so that he could get money from the bookies, etc. And what I really appreciated with this is that while he didn't approve of what Hansi did, he didn't state that over and over and over again, if you get my idea. It's like, this wasn't a right thing, we wouldn't have done it. But what he did was he spoke about the type of man that Hansi was, and to be totally honest, I think that made me trust him a lot more as a narrator of fact, because we are not the total sum of our one poor decision in life. That's my cat leaving, by the way. I have a barricade up here in case you're wondering, so that this is my cat's safe place. Anyway, carrying on. So I appreciated that, and it gave me more trust in him as a narrator, because he still highlighted all of Hansi Cronje's good points. I mean, he was a fabulous captain up until he kind of betrayed everyone, but you know, he also spoke about sensitive issues, things like the racial quotas that are required here in South Africa, and were particularly a sensitive topic back in the beginning. And he spoke about the emotional and the physical damage that it caused to these players who were put on a team when they weren't ready to be there, the physical damage that happened to some, and how players, even long after they had clearly deserved their spot on the side, still felt that they weren't there for a reason, well, for their own merit. And he spoke about how much effort and team building was required to actually make a change with that. And I got a feeling that cricket is definitely a game that works on emotional strength. As to the writing, it was fine. I mean, it did its job, it conveyed it. The parts that really spoke to me, though, was when he was talking about cricket. And you can tell this man loved the sport. He gave an insight beyond what commentators do. And one of the things I appreciated is he highlighted how South African commentators are actually so negative about our players. And this was something that I used to complain about as a child even, because you'd be watching the cricket and they'd be saying, and this one's making this poor decision and what's a lousy shot and blah, blah, blah. It was never the opposition were playing well, it was that we were doing badly. And hearing him discuss games that I remember seeing was brilliant. I really enjoyed that. He goes into detail about the 438 run game, which you can actually Google the highlights of on here on YouTube. And he was the last man in, well, one of the last two in, and he spoke about that and what was going through his head and what was happening. And it was so interesting to hear it and to feel the passion that he had for this game. It was fabulous. There is a bit of a downer in this, well, I wouldn't say it's a downer, but he speaks about what his vision is for cricket in the future, etc. And while I understand that this was a platform where he could get the whole country, well, a lot of people in the country and possibly in the world, hearing his opinions and thoughts, it didn't quite fit in with what I was wanting. It's not that it was poorly done or that he's got bad ideas, it's just I wasn't really interested because there's nothing I can do to change what cricket South Africa's planning. But yeah, the story then ended back where it started with the accident, and then him going, well, starting his new life without a cricket bat, and he's now trying to save the rhinos, and if he's anywhere near as good as he is at saving runs, maybe the rhinos stand a chance. I mean, he's one small guy though, so I don't know how much land he can cover, but it's a worthy goal and I wish him the best of luck. And to people who live in cricket countries, I would possibly give this a read, if you're interested in cricket, or if you've got a significant other who's interested in cricket. It was an interesting read, and he speaks about other countries and other teams and people in the teams, and generally as a whole he's very positive about all of them. I mean, they get a thrashing from Australia and still go and have drinks, or they gave Australia a thrashing and they still went out and had drinks together, that kind of a thing. Yeah, so I appreciated it, and I must admit it's made me look forward to Non-Fiction November, because I think I'm going to be getting quite a thrill with reading some of the non-fiction I have on my shelf. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. And, this book has been on my shelf for over 10 years. I've been putting it off. And I'm glad I've read it, and I did enjoy reading it. And I know I enjoyed reading it because I'd read this in 2 days, and it is over 600 pages. So that tells me alone that I enjoyed reading, because when I don't enjoy something, I start putting it off, picking up at the books. So I enjoyed it, but I wasn't satisfied completely with this. So this story, you are following the woman in a family, the mom and the 4 daughters, and the father who's a missionary who goes to the Belgian Congo to convert people. I know they told you which religious group exactly he was a part of, but I kind of forgot it and moved on. So he gets sent, he goes to this village in the middle of nowhere. There is no running water even, there's no taps in the house, etc. Everything is very primitive. And his daughters and his wife have to learn to cope. Him being the male, he is just there to preach. And although the story is not told from his point of view, it's covered completely and utterly by the woman, the mother and the 4 daughters. A lot of the emphasis actually is really on what he's done, or what he is doing, because he is the reason why they are there. And for one, it's very clear that he is the abusive father. He, unlike the people in the village who are savage, he is the one man who does beat his wife. He traumatizes his children. He does not understand or respect anything to do with the culture that he is immersed in now. He wants everything done his way. And he's not even prepared to listen to common sense. Like, we don't let the kids go near the river because the crocodile ate a child last year. We're not doing the river baptism thing, So you've got things like that. You've got them, the children learning about the culture, because obviously they are the best positioned to do this. The mother was really slaving away there, because when you don't have running water and you have to boil what you can get from a river, and you have to wash all the fruit even, otherwise you're going to get worm. You can't walk barefoot in the house, you'll get hookworm, things like that. So the mother was kept really busy, but the children got a chance to mix with the other children in the village. The story itself, I did enjoy it. As I said, it moved quickly, and I was there in Africa with them. Okay, let me talk about the issues that I have. The first one is that the father is a stereotype that I have read so many times. I know that I read The Mosquito Coast by Paul Theroux years ago, probably going back almost 10 years ago. And the father in that irritated me a lot more, and I think that was because there was more to him. This father, he was just this blank stereotype. There is one small part where the mother talks about how she met him, and you realize that this man had been changed by war. And if that had been examined, it might have made me feel some compassion towards him, or at least understood where he was coming from. But he just seemed like this immovable, stubborn force that just wasn't going to change. And so my dislike for him wasn't really for him, it was for this blank wall, so that didn't work so well for me. I think I would have felt a lot more had he been made more real, where I would have been sitting going, oh, but I can understand, but, instead it was just, he's an idiot. The second problem, the second thing that I didn't quite like was the choppier ending. The first 3/4 of the book basically is the children in the Belgian Congo with the mom and the father growing up, and then something happens, and from then on it becomes very staggered, so you will jump time periods throughout, and that just felt jarring. I felt like I'd been kicked out the family and I was now watching from a distance, and that was where it seemed like Barbara Kingsolver was wanting to put a message across. And I'm not too sure about the message that she was trying to put across, or how much I agree with it. Because I don't know. Let's just put it this way. You cannot judge Africa purely by the behavior of average people in a village, just like you cannot judge foreigners, Westerners, I don't know, Americans, Brits, by the people in office. But anyway, I don't want to get too hooked up in that now. And I don't want to get my foot in my mouth. So we're going to move on to the next book. And this one I've been looking forward to reading for ages. This is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I don't even know why I look, because I know. And here you follow a young boy, Quoth, who is on his way to being the greatest, I don't want to say wizard because he's not a wizard, but wizard of all time in this world. And he is telling his story. The story is going to be told over 3 days in a pub to, oh God, what was the word that he used for this? You can see it's late again, and home nursing takes a lot out of one's brain, I promise you. But anyway, he's been telling his story in a pub, and this book is day 1. This book is day 2. And the one that everybody's been waiting for years is supposed to be day 3. When it comes, it comes. So yeah, it's a very slow burning fantasy series, from what I can tell from where I am. I'm almost halfway through the second one. It's very detailed, it's very explicit, the world is very well developed. Quoth is a very interesting character. He is an exceptionally intelligent character, and I do like reading about intelligent characters. The only objection that I have with this is how people are not aware of the fact that he is 15. As I said, I'm a teacher. And I know that 18-year-olds do not mix with 15-year-olds at high school. It doesn't matter how smart or how good a player of rugby the 15-year-old is. You're not going to be mixing with the 18-year-olds because they're going to look down at you. And I don't think it was going to be any different when the 20-year-olds get involved instead. So my only objection with the realism of this is that it's not Quoth that I'm objecting to. I am quite happy to buy the fact that this guy is a genius prodigy and amazing at everything, just because it appeals to me at the moment. While I know that that's unrealistic too, but you know what, we're just going to move on and leave that about. I will buy it for the sake of enjoying the series, but it's how everybody else responds to him. I think that in the real world, even in a fantasy world, I think that a lot of people would have taken a lot of objection to how smart he was and how easy he was moving through the ranks. Yeah, so I'm really enjoying it. It's one of my favourite reads so far for the year. This one I'm enjoying too. It's a little bit slower, and while I don't object to slower, it's that, you know, I want something now to happen. But I'm sure something's going to happen soon. I mean, it has to. A lot of people love this book as well, so I'm pretty sure something's going to happen soon. And yeah, so that has been the reading that I've done recently, and I am going to hopefully finish the Wise Man's Fear, and then I'm kind of thinking of a Ken Follett book, or maybe a classic next. I'm not too sure. Or maybe, I know I've got a YA trade paperback that's over 500 pages on my shelf, and maybe I should get that one out the way, because otherwise I'm going to keep putting it off. And yeah, so I think maybe I should just do that one instead too. I don't know, I'll decide what I'm going to read, but I'm going to go now and carry on with the Wise Man's Fear. I look forward to chatting to you again in the future. Bye for now.